What's up, everybody? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to another lesson on the right mindset. Today, as you can see, we are going to go over how to avoid these common mistakes, essential tips for new writers. Basically, we'll touch on common mistakes and their implications, identifying common mistakes in your writing, and correcting and refining your writing. So basically, let's get right to it and start the show, shall we? Before we get right into it, just real quick, if you can, if you're a beginner or an advanced writer, author, or screenwriter, whatever the case may be, and you like what you've been watching, or you've been watching for quite some time but just haven't done so already, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. If this is your first time, all the lessons that we do here are mixed. We do lessons about our craft, we analyze and review storytelling, and of course, there's the podcast series where we interview fellow writers. So I want to get right to it. Today's introduction on the episode of Common Mistakes New Writers Make, basic essentials to essential tips for new writers. So today we're going to delve into the world of common mistakes that new writers often encounter. By understanding these pitfalls and learning how to overcome them, you'll be well on your way to improving your craft. Now, in this lesson, we'll cover 3 common mistakes new writers make and provide practical strategies to identify and correct them. From understanding why these mistakes are considered detrimental to your writing to discovering methods to refine your work. My hope is that today's lesson will lead to a path towards growth and improvement, which takes us to the first point. Common mistakes and their implications, right? Common mistake. Okay. Here are 3. We're going to give you 3 common mistakes and their implications. Weak characterization is number 1. Weak characterization occurs when characters lack depth, development, or fail to resonate with readers. It hampers reader engagement and can kind of hinder the overall impact of your story. For those who don't know, what is characterization? Characterization is the process of revealing the personality, motives, and development of a character within a novel. It is an essential part of storytelling as it helps readers connect with the characters and understand their actions. There are 2 main types of characterization, direct and indirect. Direct characterization is when the author tells the reader directly about the character's traits. This can be done through the character's narration or through the words of other characters. For example, the author might say, "The character was kind and compassionate." Thomas was kind and compassionate. Or another character might say, "She was always willing to help others. I can't believe this happened to her." Indirect characterization is when the author shows the reader characters' traits through their actions, words, and thoughts. This is often more effective than direct characterization, as it allows the reader to form their own impression of the character. This is known as showing, right? For example, the author might say the character Thomas helped an old lady cross the street. He took his time with a wave to the cars to hold themselves while the light turned green, right? Or the author might have the character think about how much they care about their family. For example, while Thomas worked at his desk late at night, he paused with a glance over to his family portrait. He stared at his wife and 2 children, remembering that sometimes work with no play Makes Jack a sad boy. I don't know. And then the character gets up and leaves, right? Because he wants to go home. In addition to direct and indirect characterization, there are also a number of other techniques that writers can use to develop their characters. Real quick, this includes, but not limited to, physical description, dialogue, action, thoughts, and of course, backstory. For me, I always say the best way to develop character is to use a combination of all these techniques by revealing the character's traits through their actions, words, thoughts, and backstory. The writer can create a fully realized character that reads with care, especially when you allow their character to move through the narrative to develop plot, character development, and also world building. 2. This is the second common mistakes and their implications. 2. Inconsistency with POV, point of view. Inconsistent POV can confuse readers and disrupt the narrative flow, ultimately affecting the pacing. Jumping between different perspectives without clear transitions can disorient the audience and diminish the storytelling experience. Think about using soft and hard chapter breaks within a chapter to indicate POV switches. Each chapter could also be a POV as well. R.R. Martin from Game of Thrones does that a lot in his books. Additionally, think about using indicators like Michelle glanced over to Robert. Now, when you use a soft chapter break, you can jump to Robert's POV. All right. Number 3, with common mistakes and their implications. The third thing is poor dialogue. Poorly crafted dialogue feels artificial or lacks authenticity, making it challenging for readers to connect with the character. It can disrupt the immersion and credibility of your narrative. There is a difference between, "You are the worst person I've ever had to deal with, Richard," and "Dealing with you on a 7 is not going to help us to get to, let me do a better reading. Dealing with you on a 7 is not going to help us get through this today. Could you bring it down to, say, a 5?" One has a character through it, an emotion, and it allows the dialogue to move through that character and their relationship with that person. Whereas the other one is just basically, I need the audience to know that this character doesn't like Richard because Richard is the worst. Okay. Moving on. Identifying common mistakes. How do we identify common mistakes within our own writing? Well, let me tell you. 1, weak characterization. How do we identify the common mistakes of weak characterizations? Well, look for characters that lack distinct personalities. These are personalities that have so if a character lacks distinct personality, you need to think about these things to really identify personality. First, there are personalities that have positions in life. Positions are where people stand on subjects. Basically, do you believe the Giants are better than the Jets? Well, that's a position. Do your characters have inconsistent behaviors? Well, understanding a character's clear position in life makes following through with their behaviors. Okay, so they do believe the Giants are better than the Jets. But are they super fans or casual fans? So this creates a behavior to the position. If they are a super fan, are they prone to wear their colors, talk about football and their team, or maybe they defend the Giants being the best team and make fun of people for liking the Jets? So their position influences their behavior and back and forth, okay? Now, of course, do not undergo meaningful development throughout the story just because you need something to be known. So, you want to develop a character. You don't want just people go, this character really loves the Giants, and they make fun of everybody who's a Jet fan. And they wear their colors all the time. Like, now there's no meaningful development. If you're just stating that, or a character's like, oh yeah, Jimbo, he loves the Jets and he's always wearing green because him and his father, this and that. Like, you're not developing a character. You're just telling people about a character. But if the reader sees the character wearing Jet clothes, or Giants colors, if the reader sees the character, styling their life around the schedule of the game. Now we're developing meaningful characters. So basically, to do this, let your character, to figure out if your character is meaningful and being developed in a meaningful way, let your characters be challenged and grow from those challenges. It doesn't have to happen all the time, but characters need to have the following happen to develop. It starts off with they have a position. That position is challenged. They make a choice based on their original position. That choice leads to a consequence. Now, the consequence could be good or bad, it doesn't matter. The result of that consequence are either going to make the character maintain their position, adjust it, or change it completely. Now you take their position based on the challenge and you start all over. So at the end of that process, I'll repeat it. But at the end of that process, they're either going to be the same character they were at the beginning of the situation, they're going to be slightly adjusted, or they're going to be completely changed. So again, a character goes into a situation with a position. Their position is challenge, which is usually known as conflict, right? They make a choice to have behavior to that challenge based on their position. And then there is a consequence to that choice. And that consequence could be good or bad. The results will then determine if the character stays the same, adjusts, or changes completely. All right. And then that basically is how you work scenes with characters. Every scene they go into, did the last scene change? Did they stay the same on their position, change slightly, or change completely? Right. Okay. Another thing about identifying common mistakes. Number 2, inconsistent POVs. Now remember, to identify this, you want to pay attention to abrupt shifts in perspective, conflicting narrative voices, or instances where the reader might become confused. These are clear when you realize you're not utilizing indicators, soft or hard chapter breaks, or even a new chapter completely. If you keep jumping in and out of characters, also known as head hopping, it can be too chaotic to follow. Try to allow clear breaks from one POV to another to allow the reader to follow the narrative. Now, again, does that mean you can't change POVs within a section? Like if you don't have a soft chapter break? No, you can. You just have to use the indicators, right? And you're allowed to be in them, but what you don't want to do is change POV within a paragraph. So if you have a passage where it goes, Thomas watched his friends make fools of themselves as they tripped on each other trying to play basketball, a sport he knew he wasn't ready to have. Carl was aware that Thomas was watching him, no matter how much he ignored the visual judgment from his friend. If that's all one paragraph, you might have to rethink that and rework it a little bit. And it's okay to kind of like have Thomas watching the game and then jumping paragraphs and but lead it to Carl. Have Thomas point out Carl. At the very end, it's like Carl definitely had the most initiative. The most incentive to sit down because white man can't jump. And then the next paragraph could be Carl. All right. I wouldn't do that all the time, but you can. And again, you want to be able to identify common mistakes. So what about poor dialogue? Well, you watch out for dialogue that feels stilted, lacks individual character voices, or fails to advance the plot. Or one of the more important jobs of dialogue is to reveal information about the characters, either by what they say, how they react, or how they, it's what you say or don't say, what you do or don't do, right? That basically creates characters. So in this case, it's what you say or don't say. It's what you say about certain things, what you say about you don't say, about certain things. If dialogue isn't doing something, then it is doing nothing for your narrative, story, or plot. I'll say this. In screenwriting, the biggest thing that I dealt with is this rule. Every line is money. So a page I know we're talking about novels right now, but just I'm gonna make sense of it. if I'm writing a script, I know that page is going to cost money. In fact, let's just say 1 to 3 pages is going to be a day's worth of filming. So when you're budgeting based on the page, not based on the reality, right? You're not, like the page is the general budget before you kind of do a full budget, right? And like a shooting budget. And if you have dialogue in there that isn't doing anything, it's going to cost money. So one of the first things you do with script is you go through and you go, do I need he or she to say something here? Does it have purpose? If it doesn't, do I need it to have purpose? So let me give it purpose or take it out. So when you're writing a novel, novels have a word limitation traditionally in traditional publishing avenues. For example, an epic fantasy might be anywhere from 100,000 to 150,000 words for a first-time author. Obviously, the more popular you are and the more you can sell, the bigger it can be. Why? Because they know that the cost of the book is going to be justified by the sales. If you're writing a romance, you probably don't want to write a 140,000 word novel. You probably want to stick around 80,000, 70 to 80,000 ish, right? With that said, if dialogue isn't doing anything, clearly you could take that out or adjust it. But if the dialogue is strong and doing something, well, you know that it's worth keeping in, and therefore it helps with the story. But every word is influencing your word limitation, your word count. So at the end of the day, you have to really think about it. Like, what am I trying to say? How do I concisely say it? How does this scene need to be 3 pages long? Or do I really need this monologue that's a half a page, right? So these are things you should be looking for. If it's not doing anything, then it's not doing anything. All right. Basically, you want your dialogue to carry weight with it. This is why we get rid of, hi, how are you? And jump right into the meat of the situation. Does that mean you can't introduce a scene? And not at all. It means that the meat is what's important to the narrative overall. A character saying late again has more of an impact than hi, how are you? We need to talk as an opener is not as impactful as the crap you put me through is why we're about to talk this out. Okay. Those variations on lines have different impacts to the story and serve different purposes. It adds to character development. It's saying something. It's moving the plot forward. Hi, how are you is not moving the plot forward. We need to talk is moving the plot forward, but it's not necessarily saying anything of substance. So if you wanted to have more substance, add emotional truth to it. Anyway, dialogue must do something more than inform the reader of information. Each character has a voice, a position, and purpose that motivates them to stay in the room. What that means is, again, with actors, they have to find a reason why they don't leave. What are they fighting for? What is their purpose to stay in that room and deal with whatever it is that's going on in that room? And if you could understand the substance of that, you'll realize that sometimes what's killing your dialogue is they're not saying anything strong enough to maintain them being in that room other than you want them in that room to have this conversation. So you have to add some sort of value, worth, emotion that motivates them to stay in that room. Okay. Now, all narratives have both plot and story, and the plot or subplots need to advance, right? And character development and growth through how they experience and react to those situations is really what you're using dialogue for, other than physical descriptions and stuff like that. But if your dialogue isn't doing that, then it's just dialogue and it doesn't have substance. Now that we've actually identified these common mistakes, how do we correct and refine them? Which brings us to correcting and refining your writing. So what I'm going to do here is, again, I'm going to go over to the 3 things: strong characterization, consistent POV, and engaging dialogue. And then I'll do like a quick intro for each. Then I'm actually going to show you examples. I'm going to show you a weak example and then a strong example, okay, of each. All right. So here goes. Strong characterization. All right. So, how do we correct and refine strong characterization? Develop well rounded characters with distinct personalities, motives, and conflicts. Allow them to grow and evolve throughout the story, eliciting emotional connections from your readers. Again, this is about giving a character a position, challenging that position, and based on the consequences of their choices, results in them maintaining or changing their position. Here are the examples of weak and strong characterization. So let's do that. Let me get rid of this so you can see. All right. All right. The weak characterization is Sarah was a girl with long brown hair and blue eyes. She was smart, kind, and brave. She loved reading books and going on adventures. She faced challenges, but always overcame them. All right. So before we get into, I'll leave that up so you can look at it. Let's go over that. Sarah's traits are basically, in this example, the character's descriptions lack depth and distinctiveness. Sarah's traits are genetic and lack individuality. We don't really get a sense of her unique personality, desires, or struggles, and this makes it difficult for us to really connect. Also, this is 100% telling. Okay, so let's read the showing. The strong characterizations. Emma's fiery red curls bounced with each step as she strode into the room, exuding confidence. Her piercing green eyes sparkled with mischief as she surveyed the exaggerated decor. She had a knack for unraveling mysteries, and a relentless determination often landed her in unforeseen adventures. Beneath her bravado, however, she carried the weight of a tragic past that fueled her desire for justice. Now, to be clear, you can have both showing and telling. Telling sets things up, showing allows us to move through it. In this example, we're actually seeing a little bit more of who Emma is. So Emma has a distinct physical attributes, personality traits, and complex backstory. I mean, just the fact that we know she has fiery red curls that do bounce with her personality. She strode in that room, exuding confidence. So we have a sense of that. We describe her piercing green eyes with the mistress as she surveys the exaggerated decor. So we're world building. The world building is of the room, but we're also moving character around. She had a knack for unrevealing mysteries, etc., etc. All these sentences are moving into the next sentence, and they're developing character. So, Emma has the distinct personality, the complex backstory, which is actually kind of fueled through telling. But as an example, it's good to kind of just put that there. But again, if the tragic past that fuels her desire for justice is important, I might want to kind of reveal that through seeding and slowly develop that truth. If it's not narratively important, we just need to know that she needs justice, then I want to show her trying to get justice throughout the novel. So this sets up the foundation of who she is, and now you want to kind of see that she's capable of it and or challenge how capable she is. Anyway, the other thing the strong characterization does is we're getting a little bit more depth into who she is, her motivations, and the conflicts. Readers can and should become emotionally connected to characters that have movement. This allows a reader to become more invested in their journey. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is consistent POVs. Now remember, you want to maintain a consistent narrative POV or perspective to ensure smooth transitions between different points of views. Clarify the purpose of each perspective and use them strategically to enhance storytelling experiences. Don't do it to do it. Allow transitions to tell the story, to move the narrative forward. So again, we're going to show some, we're going to do a weak and then a strong one. Okay. So here we go. Here it is. Jane walked into the room, noticing the exaggerated decor. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. She wondered how much it had cost. So this is two perspectives. We have Jane and some dude. Okay. And that's what happens. The reader may become confused about whose perspective they are experiencing, and you got to maintain it. Now, I can do a quick fix of that. So, right. That's the quick fix. Right. But again, these aren't really doing a lot of work for the characters themselves. They're failing. It's failing the three rules, which is plot, character development, and world building. This has a little bit of character in it, but this doesn't. So it's not doing. But anyway, all right. Let's go into the strong example. Let's read that. Okay. As Sarah stepped into the grand hall, her gaze swept across the opulent decorations. Oh my god. I wear glasses. I don't have them around. All right. She marveled at the extravagant chandeliers that bathed the room in a soft glow, golden glow. She wondered how much the lavish setup had cost. And now it jumps to the next part. Meanwhile, in the corner of the room, John observed the guests, mingling with an air of superiority. His eyes narrowed as he recognized the familiar face among the crowd, an old acquaintance who owed him a debt. I would actually probably do this if I was to clean this up. Sarah stepped into the grand hall, her gaze swept across opulent decorations. She marveled at the extravagant chandelier that bathed the room in a soft glow. Okay. She marveled at the exaggerated chandelier that bathed the room. And so her eyes followed the light down to the familiar face of John. She wondered how I could even do this. Boop. Okay. She wondered how much the lavish setup had cost. Was nothing. Wait. Sarah found herself enthralled by the ceiling that led to chandelier that bathed the room in its own. Okay, so there you go. And then right, boop, and then a familiar face of John standing in the corner of the room. Now we can actually take this out. John observed the guest, familiar face of John standing aimlessly, standing in the corner of the room, speaking with another gentleman. Okay. And then John observed the guests mingling. Well, Christopher spoke highly. Christopher's words were muffled by his lack of care. All right, so John observed the guests mingling while Chris's words were muffled by his lack of care. You could even do this. Yeah, let's get this into there so we can have it. With an air of superiority. Wow, Christopher. Okay, so his eyes narrowed as he recognized a familiar face staring back at him among the crowd, an old acquaintance who owed him a debt. All right, so there you go. So now there's clear POV jumps and there's indicators. Okay, so the original sample was good because it was two separate paragraphs. We get it, but now we had a chance to sort of add a little bit more. I added a little bit more flair to it. I added, stuff like that. All right, so let's move on. Next is The third thing in correcting and refining your writing, engaging dialogue. You want to craft dialogue that is authentic, revealing, and advances the plot or character development. You got to remember, you got to use subtext, varied speech patterns, and realistic conversations to make your characters come alive. Here are weak and strong examples of exaggerating dialogue to bring your characters to life. All right, we're going to do weak voiced. Here we go. Weak is, "Hey, how are you? I'm good, thanks. How about you? Same. Nice weather today." "Yeah, it is." So what makes that not work? Well, ultimately, in this very standard example, the dialogue lacks individual character voices and fails to reveal meaningful information or advance the plot. The conversation feels superficial and lacks depth. This makes it challenging for readers to connect with the characters or feel invested in the dialogue. However, as you can see with the stronger version, Emma leaned against the moss-covered stone wall, her eyes locked with Jack's. She smirked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You think you can outsmart me? I've seen through your tricks from the beginning." Jack chuckled, his voice tinged with amusement. "Oh, but darling, you underestimate the depths of my cunning. This game is far from over." All right, and as you can see, there's a little bit of subtext. There's varied speech patterns, which is based on the lengths of sentences. So that's how you would do that. Again, you could also make them feel rushed, or he's like, "Oh, period. But darling, period. You underestimate the depths of my cunning, period. The game, period, is far from over." Right. So, you could do that. You can create a sense of like stutter and like, you could do that with periods, right? But in this situation, there is still a variation of dialogue from each person, and their personalities are in there. And when we do this, it makes it a little bit more interesting. So overall, I'd like to just state that these are a few strategies to help you correct and refine these common mistakes. And you got to remember that continuously learning and improving are vital to becoming a better writer. So keep challenging yourself, honing your craft, and nurturing your storytelling abilities by remembering the rule. You don't always have to practice when you write your novel. You can practice even when you're not writing by going, "Let me focus on imagery. Let me focus on dialogue. Let me focus." And it doesn't have to be with your book. It could just be you working out ideas, just the practice, okay? And that's why you want to find ways, okay, to work on technique, like riding a bike to learn how to do wheelies. Focus on specific things to hone your skill. Final thoughts. It's important to remember that mistakes are an essential part of the writing journey. Embracing these mistakes and viewing them as learning opportunities is crucial for growing as a writer. Writing is a craft that requires continuous improvement in identifying and correcting these common mistakes, which is a significant step in that process. It's important to take away any biases we may have about our own writing and invest the necessary effort to better ourselves. Of course, we're going to think what we write is great. Even if we have low self-esteem, we're like, "Oh, this is crap. This is crap." It's hard for us to identify what makes us believe it's crap. In fact, it might be great, but sometimes it's hard for us to take the bias of being our own editor. That's why you're supposed to hire editors and stuff, even if you are an editor. And to work on this, we must challenge what we think we know and be open to learning and evolving. Making mistakes doesn't make you a bad writer. Refusing to learn from them and not striving to improve does make you a bad writer. Writing is a journey, and it's perfectly normal to encounter these common mistakes along the way. What matters is how we approach them and the effort we put into refining our skills. Always be learning, always be growing, and always invest time into your craft. Plus, you want to seek feedback from trusted sources, engage with writing communities, and never hesitate to seek help when needed. So embrace the process, celebrate your progress, and keep pushing forward, because each mistake is an opportunity to become a better writer, which means you should be staying committed to your passion, nurture your creativity, and never stop honing your skills. With dedication and perseverance, you can overcome these common mistakes and become the writer you aspire to be. Now, next in the series, we will focus on pace is crucial. Taking readers on an engaging writing journey. I also have dyslexia, so no glasses. I'm trying to see the screen. If you notice, sometimes I gotta really lean in, like I'm like this. Pace, crucial. Talking, my brain, it's terrible. This is why every great writer has a great editor. Anyway, in that video of pace is crucial, taking readers on an engaging writing journey, we'll explore the importance of pacing in your writing. We'll talk about how to create a captivating journey for your readers, navigating through changes in tempo, mood, and atmosphere. Question: what are some other common writing mistakes you've encountered, and how did you overcome them? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you watched and you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. All right. That brings us to the final moment of the show. So as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.